All right, so Dad, this is more of a get to know you episode for Ezra. Growing up, I always remember Saturdays for me was basketball and cartoons. That was always the two things that defined Saturdays for me. And I remember watching you, it was some type of sports on TV and golf. You always were golfing on the weekends when I was growing up. Can you tell Ezra a little bit about what a typical Saturday was for you throughout your life? Because I know it changed from when you were a kid to when you're an adult.
Yeah, that's true. But it always entailed sports.
Mm.
I've been playing sports as long as I can remember, probably when I started like 6 years old, playing in the leagues where you put a ball on a stick and hit it. Or actually, they didn't have that in those days. What am I talking about? That's during your time. During my time, your coach would pitch to the team.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't have a tee to put the ball on. The coach would pitch. I remember that. I remember the guy, his son, but I don't know their names. I don't know where they're at. But I do remember that when I was really small. So on Saturdays, they always had, the games on, or during the wintertime in Pennsylvania, it's cold outside. There's lots of snow and, so those kind of things you go out and play. But back then, your parents would make you leave the house, but you wanted to leave anyway because there's nothing to do in the house. So outdoors was where you were, playing in the snow, making snowmen, riding your sled, doing all that kind of stuff. Even when I was small, I can remember doing that. I can remember doing it in Pittsburgh, and we used to play these little pranks where we would take a roll of caps. Obviously, Ezra probably doesn't understand what a roll of caps is, but back in my time, you would have little toy guns, and they would have these rolls of caps you put in there. So when you pull the trigger, it would pull up one of the explosive device on the reel that it was on, or the roll, and it would just make a loud bang. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't hurt anybody. It was just a loud bang. So we would take those caps in a roll and put them on the streetcar tracks. So when the streetcars came, they would run over them and make a huge noise. And of course, all the kids are laughing and just running away because you're not supposed to be doing that. So that was the prankish things we did when I was a kid. But that happened mostly on the weekend because during the week, you're going to school. The weekend, you're playing, During the summertime, it's just everybody's outside. I mean, you start at maybe 8, 9 o'clock and you're playing sports. You're walking through the woods. You're walking down the street. You're just doing all kinds of things that mean really nothing. Like now, you play video games. When you grew up, you were playing video games. But we did watch TV. When I grew up, there was only one channel. That was KDKA, first channel in the United States, the TV channel. And we would watch the cartoons and, Howdy Doody and Clarabelle. And this goes way back. Ezra, to know who Clarabelle and Howdy Doody is, he's probably have to go on the internet and figure that out because they don't exist and there's nothing like them anymore. And then there was all the cowboy that we watched, Cisco Kid, Roy Rogers, and all of those guys. Tom Mix, there's one that you don't even know who Tom Mix is. But Lone Ranger, that was probably my favorite. But that was later on. Maybe I was 10 years old, 11 years old when the Lone Ranger started. But there's only one channel. So you get up, it comes on at 6 o'clock. You stand there at attention when the music's playing, the national anthem. I don't know why we did that. We just did it. No one said you had to stand at attention. We just did it. And then the station would come on, introduce itself, and then it would start with the Saturday cartoons. And you'd watch those up to about 11 or 12 o'clock before they took cartoons off. So it was kind of a fun time to just listen or watch the cartoons. I don't recall listening to cartoons on the radio. Like I said, in other podcasts that we watched, or we listened to all kinds of detective series and, Batman and just all kinds of things during that time. But, and that was in the early 50s. But once TV started and they had the cartoons, that was kind of a Saturday thing to do. As I got older, got away from cartoons, although I still watched them every once in a while, but it wasn't a regimen of get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, make sure you eat your breakfast, do all your chores, and then you could watch the cartoons. So as you get older, you don't do that anymore and you find other things to do. So for me, during the summertime, it was about playing baseball. So we would go out and start 10 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't come home till it was dark. And so the rule was you had to be in the house before the sun went down. And so here you are playing basketball or baseball or, you're playing something. Well, we even played football in the summertime. And we played football in the wintertime. Forgot about that, playing in the snow. That's fun, playing football in the snow. But you had to be home before the lights went out. So every place had street lights. Where I lived, every place had street lights. When those lights came on, you better be home. If you weren't home, you get a beating. So here you are playing with all your friends. The game is tied 10-10. You keep tying it, goes up to 15. Before you know it, the sun went down. So it's like you would take your friends and have them come to your house and explain to your parents why you were out so late. I don't know how many times we did that. And I had my friends because they knew I'd get a beating, if I came in late. So they would come to my house. I'd go to their house first and then they come to my house. But that was kind of fun.
And that, to put it in perspective, that was before not only internet, but before cell phones, personal cell phones. So I think the entertainment that Ezra is going to be consuming is going to be a lot different than what me or you consumed as we were growing up. The internet, and then having a device that has so many entertainment options on it in his hand is something that's very game changing.
I think, see, you're talking about your time growing up and how you grew up and what you did, but you think about technology and how fast it's moving. By the time Ezra is at that age, they'll be having virtual reality where he's standing in the middle of the room, fighting the dragons and fighting the bad guys and playing baseball and playing basketball in his room, with his virtual machine. There'll probably be a point where there's bodies that are standing there, that look real. So we don't know what's going to happen during his time, but it will be hard for Ezra to reflect on the things that I went through. I mean, you have a problem trying to visualize what I do, and he'll have a problem visualizing what you did. I mean, that's just the way it is. But certainly, it was much harder during my time for anybody to think about, you did what? You were gone all day? You didn't play any video games? And you couldn't call your mom and tell her that you were going to be late? Yeah, none of that existed. You're absolutely right. I mean, we didn't even think of a cell phone. It's just like the calculator in your phone. They're saying now that it replaces. That's Kale. She wants me to play with her. The calculator that you have in your phone, and just think what Ezra's going to have, replaced a whole computer that filled up a room. But those computers had vacuum tubes and they were really slow. And, it was just totally different when I was coming up in the beginning of computers. But now it's just amazing to see that your cell phone calculator could replace a whole computer that ran a company. It's just amazing. So the technological advances that's going to be in Ezra's time is just going to be probably unthinkable. We probably can't even think how it's going to be. We can only imagine. But so, the Saturdays were kind of sacred. because unless it was summertime, because summertime you had the whole day, every day, and that lasts for about 2 months before you went back to school. But it was a good time, just being out with your friends and playing and, going through all the things that you love to do, versus staying home and playing video games. And your friends are, your friend might be in Japan and you're playing with him on a game on a computer. It's totally different from what I grew up with. We couldn't even imagine that when I was a kid. I couldn't even imagine that. And then as I got older, as you said, I did play sports. Like when I was overseas, I would play baseball, fast pitch softball, basketball, football on the weekends, because on the military bases, that's when all the games occurred. So, it started like basketball was like Friday nights, and then on Saturday you played football or some of the other, the fast pitch softball or baseball. So that kind of took up my time. And I did have time to do it. When we were in Germany, one of the big things we did was the Volks marches, where we walked through the woods. And that seems kind of strange, just walking through the woods. But in Germany, that's what the Germans do. So almost every country we went to, we kind of picked up their customs as to what they do on Saturday, Sunday, the weekend. In Japan, what do you think they did? They like to play golf, That's one of the big things that they do. So me being in Japan was great because I played golf. I was in Europe. The Europeans like golf, so I played golf. But during the seasons of like baseball and football, football I actually didn't play golf at all because it was so cold. But in the summertime, you can do the golf. So yeah, golf was a big thing for me. So Saturdays, like I said, was sacred, and it's always been that way. I see now where they're starting to change the work week to 4 days. Even the government is going to try it. So probably about the time that Ezra enters the workforce, he'll be working 4 days a week. So Ezra, back in the old days when us old people used to work, we had to work 5 days a week. Doesn't that sound terrible? Anyway,